If you're thinking about buying the new Sony A7s3, the Canon EOS R5, or the new Black Magic that shoots 12K, don't. Actually, I don't really care if you do or not. They're all really good cameras, and if you're looking to buy a new camera, any of those would be a good choice depending on what you do. So why did I make this video? Well, I'm a member of a lot of different camera forums and Facebook groups, and as each of these new cameras were released this year, I noticed a trend, and you could pretty much guarantee that the same couple of questions would get asked every time. Will my camera manufacturer release a firmware update that includes these new features? It's not unprecedented for a camera company to release a firmware update that includes incredible new features that enable pretty awesome abilities on a camera, but it's also not super common. And there's a good reason for that. You already own the camera. They already have your money. If they keep adding new features to your camera to keep it constantly relevant, then where's the incentive for you to buy another camera from them? Also, sometimes the technology just isn't available in your camera. Like in my case, I own a Lumix S1, and it's a great camera, and it does everything that I need it to do. But it doesn't shoot DCI 4K, it doesn't have shutter angles, it can't de-squeeze anamorphic lenses in camera. Even though it could. It could do all of those things, but that's what the S1H is there for. It costs more money, and with that purchase you get all of those features, plus Netflix certification. Now you get raw output. It's part of their marketing strategy to have some cameras with less features and some cameras with more features. There's another element to this question, and it's something that's deeply rooted in the camera community now, and I think it's pretty unhealthy. You need to stop buying a camera that doesn't have features that you want and then expecting them to give you a firmware update that enables those things. You can look at something like the Panasonic S1H. Now, they even promised a firmware update that would enable RAW, and it took them nearly a year to release it. And even now, it's still just a beta release. Sure, it's an official release from Panasonic, but it's just a beta release from Atomos. So if I was one of the original purchasers of an S1H, counting on that RAW feature to be enabled at some point, I would have been pretty disappointed. Expecting a camera manufacturer to release a firmware update to enable some new feature that you don't have is an exercise in frustration, and you need to stop doing it. That doesn't mean that camera manufacturers shouldn't be improving the features they already have, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't expect them to give us things that we paid for. But to give us stuff that we didn't pay for, and that we were never promised? I hope you like being disappointed. The other question that often comes up when new cameras are released is, should I sell my camera now that this new one is out? Is this camera system dead? Is it even worth using this camera anymore? That's another dangerous attitude that the camera community has kind of adopted over the past decade. Because new cameras come out so often with new features, a lot of us are always playing the game of, how long do I keep a camera? And should I buy it now or should I wait for later? Really, the best answer to this question is buy the best camera that you can right now that suits the needs for what you do. If the camera you currently own is getting you work, or is giving you the results that you like, is there really a reason to go out and buy a camera that gives you something else that you didn't even know you needed? This is one of the reasons I will probably never be a reviewer on YouTube, because camera manufacturers kind of rely on this cycle of reviewers reviewing new cameras, saying how awesome it is, and then kind of imploring people to go out and buy a new one. For most of us, it's just not feasible. For some people, it's not a problem at all, and if you're one of those people that constantly has new influx of cash to buy a new camera system, and it's important for you to stay up to date with all the latest features, then of course there's nothing wrong with that. But for the rest of us who use our cameras as either a hobby or for work, maybe it makes more sense for us to just get good at what we do, instead of hoping that a new camera will fix our shortcomings. I like to think that I'm a somewhat decent director of photography, and pretty much any new mid-range camera that's come out in the past decade is capable enough to give a really good image. And if I can't get a good image on my S1, that's not the camera's fault, that's mine. So what do you think? Did I get something wrong? Did I miss some big important thing about why it's important to always be upgrading or expecting that camera manufacturers give us constant updates in firmware? Let me know below. Next week I've got some extra work, so I probably won't be able to get to a new how I shot that video, but if you have any questions or ideas for the next video, let me know. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.